Welcome to Marketing Made Simple TV. My name is Jeff Ogden, the host of the show, and we're really excited to have a great guest today, the wonderful Chris Brogan. Chris is CEO and president of Human Business Works, a business design firm publishing and media to provide tools and smarts to business professionals to help them work better. He's an author, he's a speaker, he is a co-author of the book, The Impact Equation, which we have here by Chris Brogan and Julian Smith. That's his newest book. And he also plays in the band D313 with Jacqueline Carley. Pretty cool. So let's welcome Chris to the show. Hey, Chris.
Hey, how are you, Jeff?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad you embraced our tradition on the show of hats. In fact, Dan... Yeah.
What did Dan wear for a hat? That's what I want to know.
Dan actually said, Jeff, I'm really sorry that I don't have a cool hat, but he said, next time on your show, I'll definitely bring one. And you look great in a cowboy hat. I got to say, that's a nice touch.
I went down to Dallas to speak at an event for search engine marketing type folks down there, and they gifted me with this hat. And I thought, first off, how am I going to get this through security at an airport? Like, this is a piece of equipment here. And second, I thought, everybody on the plane now thinks I must be a Texan visiting New England,
Sure.
Which doesn't happen. So, but I haven't had an opportunity to wear it, Jeff. So this is like its virgin debut just for you.
All right, I love that. So I'm going to start you off, Chris, with the question I ask every guest on the show. It's a tradition. Who are you and what do you do?
My name is Chris Brogan, and I am the head of a company called Human Business Works. We're doing a lot in the world of courses and do-it-yourself education right now. So I've got courses on writing and things like that. My background in the last handful of years has been helping big companies figure out digital presence, online marketing, social media, that kind of a thing. And so I've worked with guys like Microsoft and Google, IBM, Disney, General Motors, and even a little bit with Ford. So it's just... my job has been to help people figure out how to be human at a distance, and I just never seem to stop that no matter what opportunity I get.
Very cool, and I've followed your work for a long time, so I really enjoyed the kind of stuff you do. Now, one question I want to ask you about this book, which you sent me and I had the pleasure of reading, but your first chapter of the book is goals. Why is it so important that business people start off by figuring out what their goals are and
It's mind-boggling how many people want to start with action. They're very like, okay, let's get going. And they don't necessarily have a strategy. They don't necessarily have a plan that ties to anything more than a series of tactics. So with regards to thinking of goals, what are you actually really trying to accomplish? For instance, when I talk to a really big company that says, I want to get into social media, I say, great, what are you going to do when you get there? Well, I don't know, tweet, I guess. And I'm like, well, how are you going to make any money? I mean, what's your real goal here? Is it, do you need to do customer service? Do you need to do sales? Do you need to do marketing? Do you need to do a bunch of that? And from there, you can kind of figure out what needs to get done. So I always start with goals. And with regards to writing the book that way, Julian wanted to start with ideas. But I said, if we do, then we're just not going to have people in that mindset of sort of really couching their goals in their mindset first.
Very good, and I agree. The important is, on any journey, you got to figure out where you're going first. That's all very true. Another concept you bring out in the book, which I enjoyed, was the need for contrast. We're all inundated with marketing messages today, where there's a flood just enveloping us. Why is it so important to be different than everybody else?
Yeah, I think that for instance, one of the problems we have is that a lot of us do, Me Too kind of stuff. Oh, I see this person saying it this way, I'll have to do it that way. We tend to sort of follow tribal or herd-like mentality all the time. We tend to look into what other people around us are getting done or whatnot. And so I think that with explaining contrast, it's how do you stand out? How do you make sure people hear it a different way? I mean, what I hear a lot of people do is they use other people's words to describe them and what they're doing. And I just find that fascinating because I'm thinking, why would you let someone else's labels fit you so well? Figure out your own way to say it, and then perhaps people will get to a better place with it. So that's kind of how that works.
Good. I know you have a new ebook out, and I got to ask you about it because I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I love your title, your superhero concept. It's not about the tights. Tell us about that ebook and what you, first of all, the title, and then what it's all.
So it's called It's Not About the Tights, an owner's manual for bravery. And what it is a lot of people have challenges with regards to their own personal bravery. They have challenges with regards to confidence and learning how to just give themselves permission to succeed. And a lot of people have trouble with execution. How do we just get from, one part of a principle to actually getting something done? And so the concept I wrote about, it's a very short book. You can read it in an afternoon pretty much. Seth Godin said, it'll take you an afternoon to read, but a lifetime to implement. Thank you, Seth. It's not a business book, except a business professional could really use it. It's based on a course that I sell at Human Business Works called Brave New Year, which is essentially very similar to the process. The reason it's called It's Not About the Tights is that the very baseline thing I tell people is that you are the superhero you've been waiting for. And that's the absolute biggest takeaway of this whole thing, is that you have to find your own way to succeed. And this book gives some real recipes for that. I find that a lot of times with books that are sort of motivational or self-improvement based, they just say, you've just got to go out there and win, buckaroo. And that's not what I'm going for. I'm giving you a real message that I think you can replicate in your own kitchen.
That's good, Chris. So all of our viewers should download the ebook. It's Not About the Tights, because Chris does great stuff, and I think you'll really enjoy it. I want to talk about another concept that I think you embody, and you talk about bravery, and you talk about that a lot, and I like that a lot. But I'm going to talk about the concept of humility. I think for a guy who's got a zillion Twitter followers and is so well known, a speaker, and has done all these great things, you're such a humble man, and I find that so impressive. Talk to us about the need to be.
I've been really fortunate to be in the presence of some really successful people. Sir Richard Branson, Bob Iger, who headed up Disney for the longest time. None of those people lack humility. Richard Branson, as bravado-filled as he seems when you see him doing his deals and his big stunts and all that, is a very humble person. When he first talked to me, the first question he asked was, how are you doing? What's going on in your business? What's interesting to you right now? Bob Iger from Disney, the first thing he asked me was, tell me a little bit about where you're from. And I said, Maine originally, and so he tells me some stories about Maine, and we found we had some things in common. I don't think there's any benefit to being arrogant. There's some people that succeed very well at being arrogant, and they make great deals of money, but then when they come to the end of it all, they have that other regret, which is that they didn't feel love, they didn't feel like they had anything develop around them except for the money. My system is working really well as a professional. I make plenty of money by just pouring as much love into people as I can. For my Human Business Works, we sell courses, and people almost invariably will finish one course and buy some other course. There's no curriculum that says you've got to take A to get to B. They just had such a great experience in number one that they take number two and sometimes three and four. Thank you, Fernando, and a couple others. So I think that you get a lot with sharing love, and I think you get a lot with being humble. And you know what? I could go over to the grocery store right now, and no one's going to stop me in the aisle and say, "Are you Chris Brogan?" Unless they found my credit card. I'm not anybody all that fancy. Being internet famous, you don't have to worry about that. There's no paparazzi, so I'm safe for now, Jeff.
That's good, Chris, and I like that. And I got to tie that back to an earlier guest on the show, Robin Phillips of Brains on Fire. And they're all about the love and word of mouth and just a lot of the same ideas. And I love that, the servant leader concept. I think it's just so powerful. So, yeah. And I'm going to mention something you wrote when I was looking at your bio. I was looking for a bio to introduce you on the show, and you said, and what you wrote is, the bios always sound so arrogant and pompous. Tell us about writing a bio.
It's a really tricky thing. So, and I've got to go back and fix mine, because what people keep doing is they read the whole damn thing. Like I tell people, edit it, cut it right down to what you want to say, and they never do, and they read the whole thing. So then I'm standing there, and it's like the credits to a movie rolling, all of the credits before the action starts. So this is when I'm professionally speaking. I guess I didn't explain that part. The other thing is it always sounds so stunning, and that's, I mean, you have to put what you've done. I mean, I led with that. You said, who are you? What do you do? Well, I worked with Microsoft and Google. I didn't talk about how I helped my local soup lady figure out how to sell her soups better. I did, but that's not something you want to hear. I mean, you go, ooh, Google, he must know something. With regards to writing a bio, it's really important that people have some social proof that you know what you're talking about or that you've done something. And in my case, my bio is saying, I've worked with some of the biggest brands and companies you know. And the reason I say that is to make sure that people don't think I'm just some guy who thinks Facebook is neato or something, and I don't. But bios are the situation where, you know, they can fall away from you really quickly. I think what needs to happen, you know, marketing made simple, this is a great example. You really want to tell the story of what I could do for somebody else. And that, if your bio doesn't answer that, what do I do to make your business better? It's not a good bio. And by that definition, mine needs a little bit of tightening.
That's a good point. I've always said the most important word in marketing is you, right? Because it's about what you can do for you do for other people. So let's talk about blogging, Chris, because you're quite an active blogger, and you blog a lot, and I do too. And let's talk about what makes a good blog.
So I guess what makes a good blog is something where you can be helpful to other people, be informative. I mean, I wrote for years and years, and nobody paid any attention. The minute people started reading my blog and downloading it and subscribing to it and sharing it with people was when I was helpful to them. And people come back all the time now. It's really funny, even my detractors and haters, I'll see them, you know, nick things that I put together on my blog and implement it for their site, and still are very willing to say that I don't know a single thing. And I love that, because the minute you start copying off of my homework, I'm leading the show. I'm all good with that. So with regards to blogging, I think the reason I like it the most is it's this free or not especially expensive way to give people the best of what's inside your brain. It's lead generation. It's the ability to give people an idea of what you do or what you sell. And it's all kinds of great search information that leads people to the concept of, you know, taking part in whatever you're selling or whatever business you're doing. And I believe that content marketing is a lot more powerful than straight advertising and most of the baseline marketing. And I think that where we're heading is content that serves the buyer or the prospective buyer. And I'm already in position to do that, so I feel good about that.
That's great. Now let's talk about some of the things you've blogged about, and things that are different. You've written about bravery. You've written about David's tea. Where do you find topics for the blog, and how do you keep a blog fresh and interesting? Because I think a lot of people watching this probably are saying either I have a blog and no one's coming, or I need to start a blog.
So I sell blog topics, so you're very willing to buy those for me if you want. I have a weekly for 45 weeks product called Blog Topics, where I just give you more than 10 blog topics and ideas on how to get more. But the real answer, the simple answer, is you get blog topics by serving the community you serve. I mean, people ask questions every single day. I'll give you one right now in my Twitter stream. On Sideman is saying, I've got a podcast, I don't have enough customers, you know, I mean, I don't get enough people to get my podcast, so I've done all this great work and no one's finding it. What do I do? That's work for me. I can put together a blog topic on that and get it going. Everybody always has something going on. Frequently asked questions make great blog material. What's your competitor doing? That's the least interesting thing. What you can do that really makes you the cradle of knowledge is what's going to keep people coming back to your site. And so that to me is just what I do over and over again, is find ways to share interesting stuff, answer questions where I can, and just be as helpful as possible.
You do a great job of that, Chris, and I think the one thing you always do in your blog is you make it fun. And I think life is too short. It should be fun, and, you know, come up with interesting, engaging topics. So, yeah. I want to talk about another problem, because I know you're a marketing expert, and it's around content marketing. You know, one of the problems Marketing Props talks about is people just don't have enough content, or they don't have the right content. How do people start creating and publishing enough content?
Well, it's a really good question, and it's a question that a lot more people are facing right now. The way you start getting content is you start making a practice of making it, and you don't require your marketing department, depending on the size of your company, you don't leave this in the hands of the marketing department. You get everybody in on the content experience. You get the C-levels who feel like they can do it. You get the customer service people who have a passionate story to tell. And you start thinking with the mind of an editor. You have an editor and a curator and somebody who puts stuff together, and that's who you filter your content through. But you don't put it in the hands of one person. You know, every time somebody tells me they don't have the time to create, I'm a 3-guy shop, and I'm one of 2 people who make content. I make 90-something% of the content, and my chief operating officer, Rob, writes a Thursday email newsletter. So, which is not even in any of my streams, it's his own thing. And so all of the stuff I make, all the blog posts, all the audio podcasts I put out, I do 3 of those a week right now, is all from a 3-person shop. Now, my business is a little different than most. I mean, my product tends to be content-based, so I'm a little closer to the cereal here. But I would say that, you know, the first mistake all companies make is that they don't make it an ingrained part of the business. They make it a task that someone has to check off. Guess what? If you're not getting paid for that task, you don't care about the task. If you are the only person who has to care about the task and you can't get buy-in from other people, that's another problem. You've got to build a sort of culture of content inside the business. And I'd say that there's some good starting books out there for that. Content Rules by C.C. Chapman and Ann Handley do a good job. I think Jay Baer and Amber Naslin's book, The Now something, I forgot the name all of a sudden, The Now Revolution, I think is another book like that. And, you know, with the whole concept of creating content all the time, I mean, there's endless possibilities. You just have to start getting it done. You have to start making 1 to 2 minute YouTube video clips, interviewing the customers who are doing great stuff, or interview the internal people who deliver the process. There's just tons of ways to bring it, Jeff. It's just a matter of making sure it doesn't feel like it's a sideline product.
That's great, Chris, and I'd love to talk to you for hours, but we don't have time to do that, so I'm going to just wrap up with one final question. You've been a kick-ass guest on the show, so where can our viewers learn about Chris Brogan, Human Business Works, and this book?
You know, I guess probably the easiest place to start is just swing over to chrisbrogan.com, and, you know, from there you can find little links and sidebars and everything to all of it. But, you know, really, if you want to get the best of it all, start at my newsletter. Go to hbway.com, which is humanbusinessway.com/NL for newsletter. That's the best thing I do.
I want to thank Chris Brogan for being an awesome guest on the show. He was tremendous. And I would say this show premieres every Thursday at noon Eastern at www.marketingmadesimple.tv, as well as Fearless Competitor, Digital Ethos, CMO.com, Social Media Today, Business to Community. It's everywhere. So until next, before we go, we want to thank our sponsors, of course. Avatage, which is a great content marketing company in Boston, excuse me. And they do especially great video content. Really good company to check out, avatage.com. Digital Ethos is a nonprofit educational company, digitalethos.org. Communication Strategy Group is a great PR company. And they also do brand telling. They coach executives. Eloqua is the world's largest revenue performance management software company. And lastly, we want to thank Watchitoo, who provides this great platform that we use for what we call a TV on the web show. So we'll see you next time on Marketing Made Simple TV.